The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Onyx Fantasy. Sign the promo code SGPN, score up to $1,000 bonus cash. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamepodcast.com. Rhythm, sportsgamepodcast.com/RATHMM. Make sure to also enter the free roll football contest up to $3,500 in prizes up for grabs. Go to sportsgamepodcast.com/free roll to enter today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It's currently Sunday morning, roughly 2 a.m. Eastern Time on September 8th. I'm your host, as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to get into the final for the U.S. Open. We're going to preview the matchup between Fritz and Sinner, taking place on Sunday at around 2 p.m. Eastern. So once again, going to get into that match in particular, but it's going to be a pretty short episode because of it. Before we get into that, I do want to take care of some housekeeping. I want to remind you once again to like, subscribe on YouTube, and a reminder as well, if you are still listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple audio only, you can still leave a rating and a review. So once again, can't show support no matter what platform you are consuming the podcast on. Hopefully you enjoy the show. I know subscribers have been pretty, I'd say, steadily increasing for the last couple of months. So hopefully we keep it going there for the last couple of months of 2024. Point is, though, don't forget to leave some type of feedback if you can. Also, a reminder, we do live stream all the shows. So if you do want to listen to it on YouTube, you can either catch the live stream or the YouTube video portion after. But you can still catch it post-edited if you do listen to it audio only on Spotify or Apple. Either way, though, a reminder as well, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. A lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality and all very affordable. And a reminder as well, the NFL has officially started over the weekend with the Thursday game and the Friday game. But now you have the main piece of week one as you have the Sunday games coming up. And a reminder that the Sports Game Podcast is back picking every single NFL game ATS like they've done since 2011. And a reminder that you should join the free roll football contest before the season actually fully kicks off in week one on the Sunday card, as you have $3,500 in cash up for grabs. Sign up at sportsgamepodcast.com/free roll to enter. Anyway, time to get into the actual recap of what happened over the past couple days. Starting off with the lock and dog picks. Overall, not great. Now, I am going to recap the lock and dog for the last two episodes because we had the semis for the men's and we also had the women's final that took place on Saturday. For the men's semis, overall decent. For the lock, we had a nice winner at plus money with Fritz to win and both players to win a set, as Fritz did win in 5. For the dog, didn't get there, as we had Sinner to win and both players to win a set at plus 127. First two sets were very competitive, as you saw a breaker and a 7-5. So point is, Sinner did have to battle for the actual sets individually, at least for the first two. Third set was kind of just straightforward, but the point is Sinner ended up winning in straight sets, which we thought was definitely a possibility, but when he's that big of a favorite, you got to find ways to get some value. We tried, and unfortunately Draper was competitive in a couple of the sets, but did not do enough to get over the finish line. So picked up a loss in that one. For the women's final, did not go well for the lock and dogs. We did pick Sabalenka to win in straight sets, so that did work out. We just didn't pick it as a lock and dog play. So for the lock, I should have taken Sabalenka in straight sets, but I took the first set under 9.5 games instead at minus 140. Didn't get there. Sabalenka was up 5-2 in the first set and then completely fell apart. So we actually had a decent path to get there, as once again, Sabalenka had two shots to actually win one game for us to get there. She led 5-2. Then you ended up seeing Pegula hold, and then we needed one hold from Sabalenka, and we couldn't get it as Sabalenka got broken, and you saw Pegula force her way to potentially having a break point there and a break opportunity in the 5-5 game. Didn't convert, and then eventually you saw Sabalenka get the break to win the set, and then you saw her win the second set as well. So we had a great chance to win the lock there, 5-2. 2 shots to win it with the inevitable champion, and we didn't get there, which kind of sucks. Picked up a loss there. And for the dog, ended up having the repeat of what we had for the semi, which ended up winning. Not so much luck this time, as we had Sabalenka to get the first ace, first break of serve, and to win the match at plus 140. Didn't get there, as Sabalenka did get broken in her first service game of the match to go down 2-0 immediately. So either way, point is, didn't exactly second service game of the match, but you have my point. Point is not exactly how we drew it up, but either way, we'll look for a better day here on Sunday. To get into the actual recap, though, for the women's final, mentioned a second ago that Sabalenka did win in straight sets as she won 7-5, 7-5. Very fun match. We know Sabalenka in the past has been prone to choking in some of these finals, and we saw some, I'd say, shades of that over the course of these two sets, as once again, Sabalenka did lead 5-2 in the first set, and then eventually ended up getting it back to 5-5. And then she actually fought off a break point in 5-5. So the point is you were looking at Sabalenka, who almost punted the first set entirely. Then she almost punted the second set, as you saw Sabalenka get out to another massive lead, and she ended up blowing the lead, but got the job done as she ended up leading 3-0 in the second set, then ended up having a break point to go up 4-0, double break. Didn't get there, and then Pegula ended up winning the next 4 games. Actually, no, she won the next 5 games. And then you saw Pegula serving for the set, and Sabalenka broke back. So the point is Sabalenka went from up 3-0 in the second to losing about 5 straight games. So once again, another potential choke job there, but she fought it off as she was able to get the break back and then eventually broke to win the match in the 5-6 game to get the job done in straight sets. So congrats to Sabalenka, who got the job done, and congrats to us because we had Sabalenka to actually win the tournament at plus 250. It's a nice outright win. Nothing extraordinary because we picked one of the favorites to win the event. Point is, though, nice win nonetheless, and nice job by Sabalenka to fight off some difficult moments mentally and to get the job done there in straight sets. As for the semis, to recap from the men's side on Friday, you had one straightforward match and one war, as we saw Sinner win in straight sets against Draper. For the other match, you had Fritz, who ended up beating Tiafoe despite falling behind 2-1, and he eventually got the job done there in 5. The real story, though, was Tiafoe running out of gas. We saw Fritz lose the third set, courtesy of falling behind a break early, and then he was able to hold from that point forward. But he ended up seeing the fourth set onward. Tiafoe kind of ran out of gas. There were a couple of really long rallies in the middle to late stages of that fourth set, and it just seemed to completely drain all the energy out of Tiafoe's legs. He couldn't really move at that point. I believe he addressed some potential cramping issues in the post-match press conference. But Fritz got the job done. Eventually did get the break in the 4-5 game to win the set, and then after that he was up 4-0 immediately as Tiafoe just couldn't move. He had no lift left. Did end up winning a game, though, in the 5th set, courtesy of a Fritz break of serve. So Tiafoe actually never held his own serve in the 5th set. Point is, though, I believe Tiafoe now, if I'm not mistaken, is 7-14, I think, in 5-setters. An atrocious 5-set player. I've mentioned it for years at this point, and I feel like he kind of addressed it for the, or I should say in the press conference. One was mental. He said that he was starting to potentially look ahead to the final against Sinner, which is something that is kind of expected when you are on the verge of winning the biggest match of your entire life. But also with Tiafoe's history of, I'd say, blowing good opportunities, that's definitely something that's dangerous and something he probably shouldn't have admitted. But either way, the point is that Tiafoe did mention there was a bit of a mental lapse there into the late stage of the 4th set. And physically, he ran out of gas. He mentioned that. He said he had some cramping issues, and he tried to give it all he had in the 5th, and then immediately went down 4-0. So the match was kind of over once Fritz was able to really just drain the energy out of Tiafoe's legs. And Tiafoe, once that happened, had no overall, I'd say, threats to Fritz, who was able to keep the ball in play, overall to showcase good fitness and good rally tolerance, and he forced Tiafoe to really make extra shots, and eventually those extra, I'd say, miles did Tiafoe in. So nice win there by Fritz, and we also ended up having Fritz to win that one with both players to win a set, so either way, that was nice for us twofold. But not exactly shocked. We got 2 favorites here. We got the job done. I thought Fritz would win, and I picked Sinner to win, so I'm not exactly shocked this is the final we got from the semis. Either way, though, fun matchup, though, between Fritz and Tiafoe, and hopefully the final on Sunday will be as fun and will be less like the Draper match, which was competitive for 2 sets, but once again, I feel like most people never thought that Sinner was really in trouble. Once Sinner won the first set, 7-5, you kind of thought, okay, it's going to be over. And Draper did fight off a bunch of breakpoints in the second set, so it could have been a lot more lopsided than it actually was, but Sinner eventually got the job done. Did bang his wrist a little bit in the, I want to say, 3rd set. It might have been the late 2nd set. I'm trying to remember exactly when. But then Sinner won the 3rd set 6-2. He addressed it in the post-match press conference. Said his wrist is fine, so we'll see how he looks in this one. But Draper, just at the end of the day, wasn't a good enough server, and it just felt like Sinner was getting more free points on the serve. So either way, nice win there for him and for Fritz. Either way, before we get into the actual preview for the final in the U.S. Open on Sunday, I want to remind you once again that we're brought to you by Onyx Fantasy because they have a pick'em, which gives you a chance to win 1,000 times your entry. The NFL's back, and there are a ton of picks and pick'em specials to get you started. And a reminder that you can use specials and boosts on all your flexed entries. For my entry on Sunday, what do I want to go with for this one? I think for this one, I am going to go with in my opinion, a pretty underrated play every single time. Give me Brandon Aubrey higher 1.5 field goals. I feel like you might remember the NFL show last year. I was very high on his field goal props, and we know that he hit one from, I think, like 66 or 67 in preseason. It is in Cleveland, so the weather might be an issue, but we know that the McCarthy red zone play calling is not exactly consistent or reliable. So you might be settling for a couple field goals, and Aubrey can hit one from basically midfield. So give me Aubrey, a higher 1.5 made field goals in that game against Cleveland for my entry. A reminder, though, you can claim the special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 bonus cash using the promo code SGPN when you sign up. So a reminder, promo code SGPN to get the special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the women's final and in the men's semifinal matches. Now it's time to get into the final episode and the final match of the U.S. Open, the men's final on Sunday, taking place at around 2 p.m. Eastern between Fritz and Sinner. Now, Sinner's a massive favorite, not a shock, minus 400. Fritz is around plus 320. For the game spread, you have minus 4 or minus 5, so basically 4.5 if you want to meet in the middle. The over-under is between 38.5 and 40.5. 39.5 is usually the consensus line, though. A minus 105 on the over, minus 115 towards the under. For the set spread here, Sinner minus 1.5 sets is minus 175. Fritz plus 1.5 sets is a plus 145. You have Sinner to win in straight sets at plus 165. The over 3.5 sets is minus 165, and the over 4.5 sets is a plus 275. Now, for this matchup, I have to mention the head-to-head because they actually have faced off against each other a couple times, and Fritz has quietly been successful against Sinner. Now, one of the matches was pretty dated. Faced off twice in Indian Wells, which is an event that Fritz basically is in his backyard. So he does have a lot of family there. And as a result, he ended up winning that title a couple years ago. But Sinner did beat Fritz in the Indian Wells tournament last year. Was competitive, though, did go to 3 sets. And you saw them face off in 2021 in the same event. And Fritz did win 6-4, 6-3. So I'm going to toss the one from 3 years ago out because I don't think that Sinner was nearly at the same level that he was at in that time period compared to now. However, last year's meeting was close, and we do know that Sinner ended up getting the job done, but Fritz did have some moments, and Fritz has been looking sharp so far in this event. However, I am going to point out that Fritz has been a bit underwhelming in first sets, as he ended up dropping the first set to Tiafoe and to Ruud, so he has dropped the first set in 2 of his last 3 matches. But he has only dropped 4 sets in the entire match. Each of them were in the last 3 matches. So he ended up coasting the first 3 rounds, dropped a set to Ruud, dropped a set to Zverev, dropped a set to Tiafoe. As for Sinner, he's dropped 2 sets, dropped the first set to McDonald in the first round, then ended up dropping the second set to Medvedev, but he coasted after that. So Sinner's been looking very good. And I do think that he's the better player, which is obviously why he's number 1 in the world and why he's the pretty big favorite to get the job done in this matchup. Now, there's a lot riding on it for Fritz because he could be the first American to win a Grand Slam title on the men's side since Roddick back in 2003. So it's been a long time. A couple of American men have made the final since. Agassi in the U.S. Open, for example, Roddick in Wimbledon, and the one consensus was they all lost. So you've not seen an American actually win a Grand Slam final in a long time on the men's side, and Fritz has a chance to end that drought by getting the job done here as a dog on Sunday. Now, the main question, do I think Fritz is going to win? No, I think Sinner is going to win. Assuming the wrist is not actually that injured, I'm going to take Sinner's word for it because he ended up dominating in the 3rd set against Draper after the alleged wrist concerns. I think he's fine. I think Sinner's the better player. However, I do think Fritz, with the head-to-head success and with how he's played on the courts here, can win at least 1 set, maybe 2. I think that Fritz is a guy who can get the job done for at least, I'd say, an hour and a half. The problem is, I know Sinner has been to these marathon matches before, and I know that he's been in these big matches before where he's won a Grand Slam title. We saw him beat Medvedev coming back from 2 sets down in the Australian Open, for example. So we do know that he is very capable of responding to adversity. And yes, Fritz did that against Tiafoe in the semifinals, trailing 2 sets to 1. The point is, though, we know Tiafoe, historically speaking, based on his overall resume, is a guy who was, I'd say, a bit of a wild card to actually make it that far, a bit of a Cinderella story in his own right. Sinner, we know, when he gets going, nobody can really stand in his path besides Alcaraz, and you can throw out a couple of names who can occasionally beat him. But for the most part, we know Sinner, when things are going well for him, he doesn't really fall apart. We don't really see that happen that often. And I think with that being the case, if Sinner gets out to an early lead, I don't see Fritz coming back. I think if Fritz is going to win this match, I think he needs to win the first set. I think he needs to be aggressive, and he's going to need to probably get on the front foot a bit in these rallies, trying to take control of it. Draper tried to do that, wasn't that effective with it, with the unforced errors. Fritz, if he tries to play defensive, will get pushed around the court, and we know that Sinner is a very solid player at the net, pretty underrated at the net. So I do think that Sinner will be able to be the aggressive one. Fritz has been solid with his overall rallying, which has been a big reason why he's made it this far. But the amount of power that Sinner generates from both wings, especially the forehand side, I just think is too much to handle, and I think eventually it will do some serious damage over the course of this match. Now, once again, I think Fritz is going to win a set. I'm not picking Sinner to win in straight sets, but do I think Fritz will beat Sinner 3 out of 5? I do not. I think Sinner is going to probably win in 4, if I had to guess. I think that's a pretty realistic outcome, and I think that Fritz will have some moments, maybe a break point to potentially take a lead in a set. But I just think Sinner's going to be too solid nerves-wise, and I do think that Fritz is going to potentially struggle with the nerves because Sinner's been here before. Maybe not in the U.S. Open final, but he has won a Grand Slam title before, and he was in the final in the French Open as well this past year, which ended up losing. Sorry, he was in the that was the semis, actually. I take it back. Point is, though, he has made a Grand Slam final before, so he has definitely gotten it done, and he has been able to respond to adversity and these big moments. Fritz has passed some tests. I have to point out, though, that Zverev, we know, has been a choker in his career in Grand Slams, and we know that Tiafoe was, once again, a pretty favorable draw for Fritz for the semis of a major when it was supposed to be Djokovic. But the point is, you're looking at Fritz, who has played against pretty good competition. Sinner's a massive step up in competition, and I think that Sinner will be able to get the job done in this match. I see somebody mentioning in the comment section, Zero Bob, that he thinks Fritz is live. Once again, I think that Fritz is alive to make the match interesting. I don't think he's going to win. I think Sinner's going to win. I think Sinner's the better player, and assuming the wrist is not an issue, seems like his overall movement's been fine. That was an issue entering the event based on what happened in Cincinnati, which he won anyway. But I think that Sinner is just too good on hard court, and I think that there's a level gap here between these two. A tier system, if you want to add, Sinner's at the top, and I think that Fritz is maybe a tier 2 below. I think as 3 out of 5 sets play out, Sinner's going to win. I just think he's better. I think it's going to play itself out that way. Now, for the actual value for this match, I'm not taking minus 400. I'm not going to take minus 175 and minus 1.5 sets. I thought about taking Sinner to win the first set and the match at about like minus 160 something, but decided not to do it. A bit too juicy for me. So there are a couple plays I'm going to go with. Give me Sinner to win the match and both players to win a set. I'll run it back. I think Fritz, once again, winning a set at least one in each of the two head-to-head meetings tells me that he can have some moments in this matchup, and we have seen her struggle a bit with his consistency on the forehand side as he dropped a set to, for example, Medvedev, where he dropped the set 6-1 there, dropped a set to McDonald, should have dropped the set to Paul. He was down a double break in the first set. Point is, though, I think that Sinner will have a lapse where Fritz can use the momentum of the crowd and to get the job done for at least an hour. But I think eventually Sinner will break through, and I think he'll win this one in probably 4 if I had to guess. See a question from who? Wondering if there's an injury for Sinner. It doesn't seem like it's that bad, especially if you watch the match in the third set. He looked fine against Draper in the third set, so I'm not exactly concerned by it. I'm at least going to acknowledge it. Maybe the wrist acts up for a little while over the course of this matchup if it turns into a bit of a slugfest, but I'm not concerned by it. If Sinner looked underwhelming in that final set against Draper and he escaped, then maybe I'd care. But Fritz, according to him, is fine. Sinner, according to him, is fine, according to some quotes, and he looked good against Draper in the third set. So I'm not that concerned about the injury. I think that Sinner is going to be fine, and I think that he'll be able to get the job done. So once again, it's kind of my thoughts on the matchup. For the sake of the over-unders here, 39.5 or like around that total, I think I am going to lean to the over. I think you might get a breaker in here. We know both guys are very good at serving. We know that Fritz has been capable of holding on a pretty regular basis in the event, and Sinner, we know, has been very difficult to break for a while based on his improved serve and his overall just weapons that he has on the baseline. So I think they're looking at potentially a breaker or two. I don't mind the over, though. I think you're looking at 4 sets or more. So as a result, I am going to lean to the over on that one. Don't mind, though, the potential Sinner team total over at 20.5. Because you can get there potentially if you end up getting 3 sets that end in a 7-5 or 7-6. So straight sets you can still win, or you end up getting a 4-setter where Sinner wins and he ends up getting to 18 in those 3 sets that he wins, minimum, and then you end up getting a potential 3 in a set that he loses. So I don't mind the team total over there for Sinner. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I'll go with that as well. But it's simply put, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I think Fritz is going to be competitive, but I think nerves will play a factor, and I think Sinner will be out for blood. Give me Sinner to get the job done in this matchup, and I'm going to lean to the over, and I'll lean to the team total over for Sinner in this one as well. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual preview for the final. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But before that, I want to remember once again, they're brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm has a lot of great options for you, model-wise, if you want to actually create your own betting model. You can also use a pre-made model that's on the leaderboards. They have the actual top-performing models listed, so you know which ones have been working, and you can just borrow their picks if you want to. Point is, though, you can use their AI projections for bets, for money lines, for spreads, totals, and props. You could also, once again, build your own model if you want to. They can give you predictions on every game and player prop, and they also have a bunch of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insight. And a reminder that Rhythm did also have some options for college football. They also liked Colorado and North Dakota State under 59.5, which got there in the first game for them. A reminder, though, you can also test out the product with a 7-day free trial. So go to sportscampbox.com/rhythm to actually try it out. sportscampbox.com/RITHMM. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Reminder, Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the MLB, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And a reminder, the price on the Game Time app actually going down closer to first pitch. A reminder that they have killer last minute deals on prices used from your seat and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time does it the guesswork of buying tickets. And a reminder, they also have the Ninja Seat Views feature, which is my favorite feature, which tells you the exact view you would be getting from your seat. So you know exactly what view you would be getting before you spend your own money. So you can avoid getting seats that are potentially mispriced or hiding the fact there's an obstruction, a pole in your way. So definitely useful, and I recommend using it because other platforms, ticketing platforms, don't have that, and as a result, that can definitely result in some bad, I'd say, viewing experiences if you use those other platforms compared to Game Time. A reminder, though, that when you do make your own account, download the app, create an account, use the code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished getting into the preview for the final between Fritz and Sinner. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I know that I ended up losing a first set play in the women's final with the under. Should have gone there, though. Sabalenka, once again, had 2 shots to win 1 game, and that didn't work out. But I am going to go with a first set spread here. I am going to go with Sinner first set minus 1.5 games at minus 115. Sinner has been great in the first set so far over the last couple of weeks, as he has won the first set in 8 straight matches, or I should say in 7 of the last 8 matches. Did drop the first set to McDonald's, but he has been looking very sharp in pretty much every set since. You're looking at how many sets he's dropped since that first set to McDonald, and he has been really, really good. He's only dropped 1 set, and that was the second set to Medvedev, but he has been winning a lot early, and I do think, as I said before, Fritz is going to need to get off to a good start. I'm skeptical because he has dropped the first set in 2 of his last 3 matches, including the semifinal matchup to Tiafoe, and it does seem like Fritz, nerves-wise, can struggle early on before he gets fully, I'd say, accustomed to the actual flow of the match. But Fritz is going for his first Grand Slam title. It's his first ever Grand Slam final, trying to be the first American to win a Grand Slam title on the men's side in 20-plus years. It's a lot on his shoulders, and Sinner's, I think, just going to go out there trying to get out to a good start, trying to avoid another deficit like he had to overcome in the match against Medvedev in the Australian Open final. So I think you're looking at a spot where Fritz might struggle nerves-wise early. I think Sinner will look sharp, and I think that Fritz will once again fall behind a break early. So I am going to go with Sinner to win the first set, minus 1.5 games at minus 115. For my dog, I am going to go with the prop that I've been constantly going to in the event. I'm going to go with Sinner to win and both players to win a set at plus 125. I've been sticking with this market, and I do like the price. So Sinner's a minus 400 favorite. I'm going to obviously try to find value taking the favorite with a reduced price. Fritz, though, has won at least 1 set in each of the 2 head-to-head meetings, so he has had some success in the head-to-head, even though he lost last year in 3 to Sinner and Indian Wells. The point is, though, he has been playing well, and I do think that he can get the job done. Sinner has left the door open in a couple of matches for at least 1 set. Against Paul, for example, against Draper, he had a couple chances. I think you're looking at Sinner, in my opinion, winning, but not winning in super convincing fashion. I think Fritz is good enough talent-wise and based on form to win at least one set here, and I think with that being the case, there's some value. Sinner also, if you want to care about the wrist injury, I have to at least mention it. If you think he might be a bit compromised, then you might end up thinking Fritz has a shot to at least win one set, maybe two. So maybe if the wrist is bothering him for at least a set, Fritz can get a free set basically in his back pocket. But I think for the sake of this matchup, a minus 400 favorite getting at plus 125, I think is a good deal. So I am going to go with that as my dog. So once again, my picks for the actual men's final, the lock's going to be on Sinner. First set games, minus 1.5 on the spread at minus 115. And for the actual dog, I am going to go with the Sinner to win the match and both players win a set at plus 125. That's available on Caesars. A reminder, though, that is the last episode of the U.S. Open. To update you all on the schedule, we're going to be off for about a week and a half because we have some ATP events coming up in China, in Chengdu, and in Hangzhou. The problem is both tournaments start on the 18th, and today, of course, is the 8th. So about 10 days where we might have a limited overall tennis coverage, and because of that, I'm not going to talk about anything. So I am going to go into greater depth on these events probably September 17th. So keep an eye out for that. Going to be off for about a week, but you can still find me on the NBA show, WNBA show, and the MLB show as well. And until next time, you can also find me on Twitter, obviously, at Reichel Radio. Until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.